Hey, what's up YouTube? I'm Stephen and I'm a popular investor on the Etoro platform. As usual, if you could please like my video and subscribe to my channel, this will really help me to widen the reach of my channel and get to more people. Also, you can visit my website, which is www.stephenbudgen.com. So today we're going to be doing a usual video which explains how we performed last week in the markets and also going through a bit of a summary about some key news events that happened last week. So overall, our portfolio fared really well last week and I'm really happy with the way that we started off May. We were up about 5.3% for the week, which was a really great start. If we compare that to other indexes, such as the Nasdaq was down about 1.5% last week, so that didn't perform very well. The S&P was up last week, so that was up about 1.2%. And Bitcoin itself, I think, was only up about 2.5% for the week. So we've actually outperformed all those indexes and we've actually outperformed Bitcoin itself. So that was a really good start. Also, if we look around about what news happened last week in the markets, Janet Yellen, who is the Treasury Secretary, she actually made some comments last week about saying that she thinks that the market is slightly overheating and at some stage they will probably look to increase the interest rates. She then later on in the week actually came back on that statement and just said it was her opinion and that this wasn't a recommendation to the Federal Reserve and it was just her own comments. So overall, the Nasdaq did pretty bad last week, and a lot of it was to do with this kind of comments and a fear of increased interest rates. Another reason why some of the markets may have been down as well is that there was some economic data which was actually released last week, in which manufacturing was actually lower than the expectations, and also around spending in terms of construction costs, etc. So this kind of dampened the week a little bit in terms of the economic readings. Last week signaled the end of earnings season. Now the majority of companies have actually released their quarterly earning reports. In general, the earning reports were actually pretty good. A lot of companies have seen a lot of growth from this time last year. And there's a lot of positive things to note, especially as economies start to open up again. However, a lot of this hasn't translated into stock prices, and there is still some kind of sentiments, one around the interest rates, but also around some of the expectations that people had moving forward were higher than the actual earnings reports. So obviously something to keep an eye on, but in general, I was pretty pleased with the way that a lot of my companies in my portfolio actually delivered during the latest earning report. There was actually some really good news this week from Europe in general. So Holland and Belgium actually announced that they are reducing the restrictions and lockdowns on the people, which is great. There was also reports released from the European Commission which said now over 25% of people in Europe have now had at least the first dosage of their vaccinations, and they're expecting that to actually increase. Germany themselves have actually said that they are going to vaccinate all adults in the country using the Astra Zeneca drug. This is actually really great news. Also, in UK, where the vaccination program had already been pretty advanced, it's actually been said now that they're actually going to deliver a third vaccination to the citizens of the UK. And actually, the third dosage is actually going to be combined with the normal flu jab. And this should help to protect against variants as things start to move forward. There was also some quite good data coming out of Europe in terms of retail sales in many of the European countries had increased, and this is kind of a very good bright spot for Europe moving forward. Lastly, some other good news for Europe is that in the next few months they're planning to open up to each other more in terms of tourism. I know that the UK, for example, has put in a traffic light system. So if you are traveling to and from certain countries which are deemed as safer, you might be able to forego having to go through any type of isolation or seclusion. So this is potentially very good for the economies opening up. There was also some quite good data coming out of Europe in terms of retail sales in many of the European countries had increased, and this is kind of a very good bright spot for Europe moving forward. Over to the Chinese market now. There was a few bits of news that were interesting this week in China. There was some economic data which showed that exports had risen a lot from the previous quarter, and that was starting to heat up, which is good for the Chinese economy as a whole. There's also a state-owned company called Huarong Financial Services, and actually they have been offered financial assistance by the Chinese government. And why that is important is because as the Chinese economy has started to deleverage from a lot of the stimulus, etc., that they'd provided in 2020, there was a lot of fears around that there'd be a lot of corporate defaults, especially with the state-owned companies. So it's really a signal of intent that the Chinese government are willing to support some of these companies. There was also some data released that overall there had been a lot of internal tourism within China. So this is very good for the country as a whole. And actually it was said that there was a 40% increase on people visiting Macau as they opened up a lot of the restrictions. As you will know, there's a lot of casinos in Macau, and actually we have one of those stocks called Win Macau. And I see this as a very positive thing. There's a lot of people that are saying that it should have increased by more. But as we build more and more confidence, I can see that there's going to be a lot more internal tourism within China, and that Macau in general is going to, really be a beneficiary of this. So I think that this is going to be very good for this stock moving forward. As we move on to the top performing stocks of last week, the top performing stock of last week was a company in my portfolio called Canadian Natural Resources, and actually they just last week actually announced the quarterly results, which were very positive, and actually they made 1.3 billion profit. And if we compare that to the loss that they actually made this time last year when they released the earnings report, this is actually great news. They also announced that they are currently maintaining record numbers of the level of production that they're actually achieving at the moment. So this is really great news moving forward from this stock, and I am really happy that we put it in our portfolio a few months ago. So the second best performing stock for last week is FedEx. FedEx actually is up about 8.49 for last week, and it's generally done very well over the last couple of months as well. There was some news last week that they're planning to help the India aid efforts, which showed a lot of positive sentiments in the market. And also they also announced that they are looking to reduce the amount of debt that they hold on their balance sheet. So this was generally good news for FedEx and the stock last week. The third best performing stock of last week was a company called Aérodeport Paris. And this is basically a airport holding company which owns airports in France. And actually they've done really well last week. They made about 8.49% growth. And a lot of the reasons why that happened is because they're starting to consider reducing the restrictions on people traveling, especially around Europe to different countries, and they're hoping for some summer tourism between the countries. So I think that we're likely to see an increase in air traffic, which will be only good for this stock. The fourth best performing stock of last week was a company called Norilsk Mining Company. They specialize in mining of palladium and also nickel. And this is really my play on the future of EV cars. So I didn't want to choose who was going to be the winner in the EV car race. So I thought it was a really good investment to actually invest in the mining companies which are making such things as nickel, which is really essential in the EV car manufacturing space. And also I'm expecting that we have a commodity super cycle and we're likely to see a lot of precious metal prices increase. The fifth best performing stock for last week was eBay. The fifth best performing stock for last week was eBay, and eBay rose about 7.15% last week. And it's a recent addition to my portfolio. And the reason why I put it in my portfolio is because not only do I think that it has a really good growth prospects, and I've been quite a long-term admirer of eBay and their business model, but I also thought that last week after the earnings report that it actually sold off too steeply. The earning reports was really good, but what happened was that the future projections for growth for eBay were actually muted. But I think that this was something to be expected, and it had probably already been baked into the price, because as we know, as the restrictions start to lift, people will start to go to retail. However, I think that lots of people's long-term trends and habits have started to be built, and I think we are going to continue to see a lot of people continuing to buy online as the novelty of shops wears off. So those were my 5 best performing stocks of last week. So as we move now on to crypto and how it performed last week, it actually started off the week in pretty good fashion at about $58,000, but then started to drop slightly in the middle of last week as the prices of Bitcoin started to reduce somewhat, and then by the end of the week it had started to recover, and by Friday and Saturday and Sunday morning, where I'm recording this video, it actually stands at about close to $59,000. There's actually been some quite good news in the Bitcoin space this last week, as a Canadian Bitcoin miner called Bitfarms actually were approved to be listed on the Nasdaq. This further provides more legitimacy to Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space. However, this week was kind of dominated more by news on Ethereum. Ethereum has gone from strength to strength, and at time of recording this video, we are very close to breaking $4,000, which is actually an unbelievable performance as it goes from strength to strength. And I think, as I've mentioned previously before, a lot of this is to do with the increase of interest in decentralized finance, and both Ethereum and Binance have also been key beneficiaries of this. Also, a lot of people have been looking at Dogecoin as it has continued its meteoric rise. If I'm going to be really honest, and I'll be honest to you as my copiers, I'm not that enamored by Dogecoin. The reason why is I don't think it has any kind of real use cases beyond speculation. And a lot of the reason why it has continued to pump over the last few months is because of the support from Elon Musk. To have your fate in the hands of one person, of whether they're deciding to send a tweet or not send a tweet, is not an investment thesis in my mind. I like to invest in projects which I think have a real future use case. So it's unlikely that I'm going to invest in Dogecoin at any time unless it's a very short-term trade, which I see an opportunity to, but I will never hold it as my core holdings in my portfolio. I have a lot of new copiers. So currently I have about 1,600 copiers and assets under management of $5 million. And I get a lot of questions around what is my strategy as we progress through with this current crypto cycle. And I wanted to just spend a little bit of time explaining a bit more about what is my strategy in terms of crypto. So as I've said previously, as a crypto cycle progresses, and a crypto cycle is usually over 4 years, which is in line with the Bitcoin halving cycle. And as we progress to this, really bullish stage of a crypto cycle, the risks involved actually increase. So I think a lot of people have in their minds that as the prices go up, it somehow becomes a safer investment. And I think the complete opposite. I think that you have a lot of opportunities in the earlier stages of the cycle. And although I expect it to stay bullish for quite a considerable time longer, I've actually been reducing my risk the longer we actually get into the crypto cycle as prices have actually gone up. So I've really been trimming my crypto holdings the last week. I've reduced my weightage in Ethereum as we've hit a all-time high on many occasions over the last week, and I will continue to trim my positions there. I've also trimmed my positions a little bit in Stellar Lumens, and as Bitcoin price continues to go up, and I'm looking at around the $60,000 range, I will further trim my Bitcoin position. I think that this is really important for risk mitigation. I think it's important that we lock in some profits and that we don't get too euphoric about what's happening in the crypto space. And I'm actually going to be using a lot of those profits to diversify into other areas. So really what will happen over time, and it will be an evolution rather than a revolution, is that my crypto percentage holdings will actually slowly decrease, and this will actually protect us if at some stage we do come to the end of the Bitcoin bull run, which I'm not expecting to happen anytime soon, as I've spent a lot of time analyzing this market, analyzing previous 4-year cycles, and actually looking at some kind of key models such as stock to flow and some other models that I actually follow. So really what I'm trying to say is that I'm going to not only try and increase your profits from your investments, but I'm also going to really carefully protect your capital and really take profits, because there's no point in making large gains for my copiers and then giving them up as if we see a dip or a downturn in the market. So I will continue to do what's best for my copiers, and that you really don't need to worry that I'm going to be stubborn and hold on to cryptocurrencies if there is a prolonged bear market, because I will not do that, because I'm very responsible with your funds. Thank you for listening to my video today. I hope it was very useful for you. As usual, I consider myself an approachable investor, so please feel free to come to me with any questions that you may have, and I will continue to try and provide you as much content and added value services as I can. Thank you very much, and good luck with the week ahead.